in the early days of the American Craft Council, which is the parent institution of the museum here, to bring writing and so on together in the Craft Horizons and later in the American Craft Museum. But it works better as it diversifies and as we have such magazines as the American Ceramics magazine. And so it's not a simple thing what has caused this explosion in the arts. But we're here to participate in it, and believe me, it's very exciting. It almost takes your breath away when you see what is being done compared to what was done in the early 50s. Well, enough bending your ear with my pet things. I'd like to show you some slides and give you some idea of perhaps what you may see downstairs, and to give you some idea of what I'm doing now, what I think might happen. So if we could start the slides. This is not the greatest torso in the world, but it gives an idea of where I started. I began taking art courses in the late 30s from an extension course in Elmira College and went to the University of Michigan. And I studied academic sculpture. And of course, the female figure was the greatest thing that you did, and you did a lot of life drawing and you modeled the figure. Now, this was done in 1941. Since I was born in 22, I was 19. And the second piece was done after World War II, modeled in 1945 while I was going to the Brighton School of Art, waiting to be shipped home as a soldier from Europe, and then cast at the Corning Glass Works in pot de verre, or a 96% silica material that they called multiform. Both pieces were cast that way, but they're cast in a different way. One is solid, and this one is a drain casting, as we would call it, cast as you would slip cast porcelain, and then taken out of the mold and sintered in a furnace. So this was my first experience with glass, and though I very much wanted to go on with it, I didn't think it was possible to do outside of a factory. And since I quickly found out that I'm not a sort of corporate person, I wanted to do a material that I could control completely. Well, after this, I finished a degree in industrial design and worked for a while and reinforced my concept that I was not for industry, and I became a potter. And this is the first pot, the earliest pot that is shown in this exhibition. It was a piece done at Cranbrook and is a part of the collection of the museum at the University of Michigan. It's an ash glaze. I was a student of Maya Grotel and very influenced by her, as a great generation of potters were. This piece, I was looking for a piece that won a prize in the Syracuse show, and we ended up at the Everson asking for that piece, and we couldn't find it. They didn't know where it was, but they said, "We've got one in the basement." So that's where some of these collections came in. So we found this one and put this in the show. This one was a piece in the first International Ceramics Exhibition in Cannes in 1956, and was the beginning of some of the international activity in recognition of the American potters' contributions at that time. It was very startling. Peter Volkos won a gold medal, and it was an amazing time. We had suffered under things like Bernard Leach came to visit in 1951, and we all felt that he wrote his impressions of his American visit on the boat on the way over. This is one of the last pots I made at the time I was making pots. It's in the collection of the Ohio State University. And then this is some of the first experiments in the glassmaking. Just melting the glass. And this is what I looked like when I was first starting. Time moves on. But that was my pottery kiln in back. And I had lots of broken glass at the time. I never made anything very big, but there are a few pieces from 1962 downstairs. This one is 1964, and it had some international recognition. It was in the Triennale in Milan, and so on. It now belongs to the High Museum. This is of the same vintage when we began to color the glass, and this is with silver. And this is the piece, we tried to get the one from the Museum of Modern Art that was really more the starting point than this one, but we couldn't get it because it's on exhibition there, so I put this one in the exhibition. It's the only one left that's whole of that thing, though it was purposely broken on the pipe. And it was the way I freed myself from the pot, the round pot. And I tried to do some ceramic sculpture, but it didn't work out. Everybody would say, "Oh, you make such nice teapots. Why do you want to make that stuff?" So, but in glass, they didn't say, "Why do you make such nice stuff?" because I didn't make it. So I was free to break it and smash it. And it was actually Peter Volkos who said to me in a visit in 1963, I think, he said, "Well, if that's what you want to do, why don't you do it?" And they picked up a piece that I had laying around the studio and admired it. And it was that kind of support that helped me each time. Well, I began by turning the pieces upside down and calling them sculpture and so on. And this one is upside down and broken open, so that's a little bit better. It was when I began to organize them in space that I think they became sculpture. They were the same blown form with the added prints and so on, but I began to define the space and the relationship between two pieces and between the cube and so on. And that's more sculpture than the object. And after a visit from Erwin Eich, the only way I could get him out of my hair was to wrap everything up and to reduce my work to geometry. And I've done this in a couple occasions to free myself from one direction and to move in another. And the column downstairs, which is in the collection of the Toledo Museum, it's the single one that has a little bit of a relationship to Brancusi, but led to a whole series of pieces. This one is less known than some of the others because it's belonged to the Prairie School in Wisconsin, purchased by Johnson Wax and given by them to the school, and was broken, and I reconstructed it for this exhibition. And this is the first of the mobile pieces, a very funny little piece, but it's in the exhibition downstairs. And this was the same as that reflections piece that Johnson Wax was made in the same way, but for a different purpose. It was to contrast the movement and flow of glass as opposed to the bending of metal. They have a greatly different relationship, and I betray my prejudice when through the title, which is Triumph. Then this piece was done at the factory of Vincent-Lambert in 1972. I did a month there. I rented space in the factory, essentially, and had an assistant, and they gave me a hole in one of the furnaces, a pot of glass of my own to work with, and an annealing oven. And I worked for a month and produced some 40-odd sculptures, many of which have been exhibited, and most of which are still in Europe. This one belongs to a collector in Kassel, and I was able to prevail on her to lend it to us because one of my assistants was in Germany and he hand carried it back. So she allowed us to have it. And this piece also belongs to the Johnson Wax Corporation and is, I think, a very fine piece in the exhibition. It's sort of an orphan because it comes in the same group that you see it in down there, the distortion box, and the other one, but it has more color and is, I think, a slightly different concept. And I've never done very much with it because I really wasn't satisfied with the construction, the glue that I had to use to put these together. So in the last years, I haven't been using glue in constructing pieces. This one was not shown in Washington, but is shown here. And when you've got the sun through it, it's quite a handsome piece. I just bought a little milling machine. A lot of the tools or a lot of the pieces come from getting a new tool. And like the previous one, I had bought a diamond saw for sawing up large pieces of plate glass, and we broke it. So I said, we'll keep sawing up 4-inch strips until we learn to saw. So we did. And so we had a lot of strips, and then we had to do something with them. So we piled them up with spacers in between after bending them. Well, in this case, I inherited a case of stained glass at about the same time that I bought this little milling machine. And so I put the two together, and I have this spectrum. I don't like leaded glass particularly, but it was a chance to use the glass, and I was trying to find out what was in the case, and I put it up all in the window and saw the flow of color through it. And it was a very important piece in my later development, especially in the prints from the glass plates and things of that nature. Well, this was a demonstration piece for a workshop I gave in 1974 in cutting and polishing and the cold working techniques. And this workshop led directly to the printing from the glass plates, because I did some sandblasting experiments for the young people, and 3 weeks after they left, I couldn't stand it, and I took one of them to my friend Warrington Colescott, and we ran it through his press. The first one we ran through, we thought, oh, well, it's glass, it'll break easy. We had to cushion it, or he thought so. So we put something underneath it, and it promptly broke. The next time, he didn't want to put it through, but I convinced him that we ought to do it. And we put it right on the bed of the press, and it went through beautifully. I thought it was all original with me, but I have these spoil sports like Paul Hollister, who send me these obscure literary references back to 1798, that people were doing prints from glass plates, true intaglio prints. Helmut Ricci and the museum in Dusseldorf really gave me the definitive thing and showed that they had been doing them in the 1840s in an experimental workshop in Vienna. And the prints were shown in the Crystal Palace exhibition in 1851. And what they were was an attempt to find a printing process that would stand up to a large edition for book plates, for the illustrations in books. They went to steel engravings because the copper and zinc, the soft metals and the wood cuts wouldn't hold up for an edition of 1,000 books or whatever. So they were looking for material that would stand up, and they went to glass. But they were etching them with the fumes of hydrofluoric, and they didn't have an EPA then, and the problems of the workers were quite serious. And plate glass was very expensive in that time. So we revived it. We didn't discover it. This was done in my friend's factory in Germany, Erwin Eisch. And there are two pieces in the exhibition that were done at work periods in his factory. And I continued to work in Europe in summer periods through a couple years ago. But I've decided I can do better in my own studio. And this was an attempt to get you to look at the glass as glass, not as windows. Everybody looks through glass. They don't look at the glass. And so this was an attempt to get you to look at the edges of commercial glass. And this is shows about where we live. This is in the pasture out in front of our house along the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina. This is in the Met. I can't get this thing there. Thank you. And was a very important sale for me. This is optical glass from the Corning factory in Danville, Virginia. I wanted to do a piece for the Corning Museum, and they arranged for me to get this glass. Actually, the plant manager was under the direction of my brother, who was a vice president, so it wasn't hard for me to get the glass. And I bent it and cut and polished it and made a series of pieces. The one called Pile Up downstairs is from the Corning collection. Then this is a schizoid piece. It's like the one in the Metropolitan, except sawed in half and oriented in a different way. And this is the last of the loop pieces that were done as loops in that series. Then came the geometry, and now the present pieces, which were called Rainbows by a rather interesting writer. And now I've stopped and gone into something else. Well, these were more optical glass that I picked up. They were being thrown on the dump at Danville, and I had them for a couple of years before I knew what to do with them. And I made the three pieces that are downstairs and one more, and that's all I've been able to do of those because they don't manufacture the discs anymore. Then this is sort of the culmination and the cover piece of the exhibition called Yellow Crown. And it's sort of the end point of putting lots of pieces together to create something larger. And this is a slide of a new piece called 485 Impact. It's or projectile impact. It was shot with a elephant gun. It's a 48.5 caliber elephant gun, and it's the old glass that was used for bulletproof glass in banks. And one of the carpenters, we had a piece that I had picked up from a friend of mine, Jerry Havanek, in Washington, and he said that he had this glass and he was going to use it for a tabletop. And I said, well, I'd like to have some of it. So he gave me a few pieces, and then we had this carpenter working on our house, and he said, I got a gun that'll go through that bulletproof glass. And I said, I'll bet you it won't. So we bet $10, and I won. It didn't go through. But I made three pieces for the show at the Heller Gallery. This one's on its side. We pushed it through with a broom handle after the bullet spattered on the back side. And then we mounted in, okay? Then we mounted in the projectile through the glass. So this piece is on view downtown. So this is the way you change the format, the direction, sometimes violently and sometimes happily. And see, this has the projectile going down into the soft glass, the hot glass, the cone, the intersection of the cone and the sphere. It's really made, the process of making it is quite a bit different than the process of making the forms that we're now making in order to have the penetration deep within and the intersection of the colors and so on. It's really a different process. It comes from the previous work, but it really is a kind of new form for me. And I don't know where it'll go from here, but I'm started. I haven't been doing the prints in the last year because we've been building a new print studio and getting set to bring artists to my studio to do more prints. I worked with broken glass in the prints because I enjoy the broken glass patterns. This print occurred at least a year before the projectile impact piece, and I've been interested in broken glass ever since I was given unbreakable glass to break by my father. And I think that's the end of the slides. The revolution that we have now is the way in which we educate the young people as a part of a total education in the university milieu, the surroundings of the university. When you think of it, Fritz Dreisbach is the example I use. He's standing in front of the glass furnace, blowing glass, sweating just like any other workman, and he's got 5 university degrees, 2 in mathematics, including an advanced degree, and 3 in art. And this is a very special thing, and it's resulted in a totally different kind of person in the arts. And the arts need this background and really show that they have been influenced by the diversity of backgrounds that people bring to the arts today. And I think it's a very special time, and it's been a very special thing to work with this educational system. It's not a simple thing what has caused this explosion in the arts, but we're here to participate in it, and believe me, it's very exciting. It almost takes your breath away. Thank you very much.